team for that whole time. And my sons are doing honest work. They didn't come into the field. I remember the first, I'm starting to reminisce a little bit as we approach the 20th anniversary of that show. I remember the first program I did. It was October 11th, 1976. We'd never done a sports talk show on WTIC. So I just started off, and it was 6:35 at night. It was a 25-minute show. It was a little filler that we were going to use. And I started off by saying, tonight we institute a brand new program. It's WTIC Sports Talk, or whatever the title was at that time. My name is Arnold Dean, and the phone number is, and we had one phone number then, no toll-free lines, no nothing. I said, the phone number is, and then I suddenly realized I don't have anything else to say. If that damn telephone doesn't ring, this is maybe the end of a very brief career here. But fortunately it rang, and it has never stopped ringing for the past 20 years. We're figuring we've got to have some kind of a party to celebrate this thing. You're all invited, obviously. But something has happened in the 20 years that I've been doing that show. You know, it's not as much fun. I remember on that first show, as soon as the phone started ringing, people were talking about the games and the players and the coaches and the fans and the owners and the officials, and it was great fun to share ideas with them. Now when I do the program, we talk about drugs and salaries and renegotiation and rehabilitation and manipulative agents and musical franchises, including the Whalers. Somewhere in that 20-year period, we've made a transition, which is not too good a transition. We went from obligations and responsibilities, and we've made the turn into rights and privileges. Nothing wrong with that, but it seems to me there can be a little bit more of a common ground. This should be a two-way street. I had Jen Rosati of the UConn women's basketball team on the show last night. I asked her about something that occurred recently when Lawrence Taylor had gotten into trouble with the authorities. You're all aware of this. And somebody said, don't you feel, Lawrence, that you have let down your fans, those people who have looked up at you as a role model? And he said they should never look up to an athlete as a role model. That's much too important a role. They should look up to a parent or a coach or a guardian or a teacher or a neighbor or a minister or a priest or a rabbi, someone other than an athlete. It's a cop-out. Unfortunately, Lawrence, you have a responsibility, because as long as you are a superstar football player, the kids are going to adopt you as a role model. And there's nothing you can say to get off the hook about that. And in order to become fabulously wealthy, you're very much in the public eye. And the more wealthy you are, the more you're in the public eye, and the more responsibility you have to set a better example for the young people. And when I mentioned this to Jen Rosati, she absolutely agreed. It's a cop-out. You must absolutely accept the mantle of responsibility that goes with a high visibility and a high paying job. You have to, in other words, try to give something back to the people who've made you filthy rich beyond your wildest dreams. So tonight is very special, because tonight we are going to be raised from the depths of cynicism, if you will. We have some inductees into your first Hall of Fame in Enfield who have answered to a much higher calling. They bring credit upon themselves with their careers and on the society. They touched many lives, and they enriched those lives by touching them. We have four who will be honored posthumously, sadly, and I would like to add my condolences to George Daly's family as well, because he very much is a part of this evening. And I was amazed when I talked to Bill Chaves yesterday, and he told me that that had happened, and it's a very sad situation. But I agree with what they said earlier, that he is definitely with us tonight. We have a lot to do, we have a lot to accomplish, and well, let me get started with it right now. One of the other things that's changed over the 20 years I've been doing sports talk is on the first show I didn't have to wear glasses. That's one part I'm really not too fond of. You probably saw this outside, an official statement, whereas the Enfield Athletic Hall of Fame is a nonprofit organization whose primary goal is to provide a common ground of recognition for past and present individuals who made a significant athletic contribution to the town of Enfield, Connecticut. And whereas annually nominees for the Enfield Athletic Hall of Fame will be chosen by a selection committee and the winners will be formally honored at an induction ceremony. And whereas the Angelo Lamagna Neighborhood Activity Center will serve as the initial location for the commemorative plaques and Town of Enfield sports memorabilia. And whereas the first annual induction ceremony of the Enfield Athletic Hall of Fame is scheduled for August 2nd, 1996 at the Harley Hotel in Enfield. And whereas the inaugural class of 1996 will consist of Carl Angelica, Phil Blaney, Cookie Bromage, Craig Janney, Angelo Lamagna, Iggy Murawski, Milt Pepple, Tony Romano, Leah Secondo, Bill Spanswick, Vito Tallarita, and Russ Tyler. Now, therefore, I, John G. Rowland, Governor of the State of Connecticut, do hereby congratulate the Enfield Athletic Hall of Fame and the inaugural class of 1996, and am pleased to designate August 2nd, 1996 as Enfield Athletic Hall of Fame Day in the state of Connecticut. And with that, we are officially launched on this evening's program. Now, let me get rid of some of my paraphernalia here and get ready for action. I want to congratulate Bill Chaves and Mike Cottonor, by the way, who did a terrific job in putting this together, and I think they deserve a terrific round of applause. And now I would like to introduce the first of our speakers. She's a member of the Political Hall of Fame up here. Enfield Mayor Mary Lou Strom, please.
Good evening. It is wonderful as I look around this room to see all of you here tonight. This is probably one of the most positive events and one of the most positive things that's happened in Enfield in a very, very long time. It's amazing to me that approximately 9 months ago, Bill first came before the council looking for support for the Athletic Hall of Fame. And both he and Mike are certainly to be commended for everything that has been done up to this point, and it's been a class act all the way, and I certainly want to congratulate them and everyone else who has worked to bring the Hall of Fame to a reality. I'd like to read a proclamation from the town of Enfield. It's honoring the Athletic Hall of Fame. Whereas the Enfield Athletic Hall of Fame has been established to recognize past and present individuals who have made a significant athletic contribution to the town of Enfield. And whereas the inaugural class of 1996 consists of Carl Angelica, Phil Blaney, Cookie Bromage, Craig Janney, Angelo Lamagna, Iggy Murawski, Milt Pepple, Tony Romano, Leo Secondo, Bill Spanswick, Vito Tallarita, and Russ Tyler. And whereas the citizens of the town of Enfield are proud of these new inductees to the Hall of Fame and the parts that they have played in the athletic history of this community. And whereas it is fitting that these athletes and all future athletes showing outstanding achievement be honored by having their commemorative plaques placed in the Enfield Athletic Hall of Fame. Now therefore, I, Mary Lou Strom, Mayor of the town of Enfield, do hereby express congratulations to the class of 1996 and appreciation to the organizers of the newly formed Enfield Athletic Hall of Fame. And be it further resolved that I hereby declare August 2nd, 1996 to be Enfield Athletic Hall of Fame Day in the town of Enfield, Connecticut. I'd just like to add one more thing, and I think Arnold Dean mentioned living up to responsibilities. All of these people, young and old, from Leo Secondo to the four that are no longer with us, have definitely lived up to being good role models for our children, and certainly have lived up to the responsibility that goes along with that. And I give my congratulations to all of them.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Now, you all know even better than I that there was a town-wide search of more than 300 candidates before they settled on the dozen who will be honored here tonight. And by the way, this may take a little while, but don't worry, you don't need to race home because the Olympic coverage is on, and I think tonight the women gymnasts are not doing anything, so they may have blank screen. One of our guys on the air the other day, Steve Savino, they asked me questions on the air, which sometimes I don't know what to do with these guys. He said, in synchronized swimming, supposing one of the swimmers drowns, does the other one have to drown too? And I said, if she doesn't, they'll lose points. So the only fair way to do this and to award these wonderful plaques is to do it in alphabetical order. So that's what we are going to do. And if you don't mind, bear with me because I've some notes here which I'd like to pass along for those of you who may not be totally familiar with the accomplishments of those people who are being honored tonight. First is the coach, Carl S. Angelica. Carl graduated from Enfield High School in 1932 after a full 4 years of sports activity, baseball, basketball, football. After a year at prep school, he went on to Providence College, continued playing football, basketball, and baseball, began his teaching career after that as an instructor in the Enfield school system, was an assistant coach, a teacher. His teacher and coaching career, however, was interrupted by World War II. After the war, though, he returned to Enfield High School, then was the baseball, football, and basketball coach. Carl assumed the additional responsibility of Enfield's director of athletics in 1958, held that position until 1975. Always the coach, Carl was also a volunteer coach instructor for many local and community athletic associations such as Little League Baseball, Midget Football. In 1978, the Enfield High School football field was named the Carl S. Angelica Field. 1978, sadly, was the year that he died. As athletic director, he hired fellow inductee Cookie Bromage and her husband-to-be Bob Bromage. And as a matter of fact, you'll notice a thread of continuity through many of the names of those being honored here tonight, that they had so much to do with the very strong sports foundation in this town of Enfield. Accepting for the coach and his dad, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mike Angelica.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. First of all, I'd like to congratulate all the initial inductees of the Hall of Fame. I think this is a wonderful thing that's really happening to this town. Very positive. If my dad was here tonight, I think he would be deeply honored and touched by this recognition. Other than that, I'd like to just say thank you to the committee and to everyone connected with it. I'm very touched. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I found it. That's what I'm really hired for, is to find the right plaque here, you know. Phil Blaney is next. From 1932 to 34, Phil played football at Suffield Academy. He was an offensive center and a defensive tackle. His 1934 team had a 7-1 record. Their only loss was to the Amherst College freshman team. And in that game, Phil played pretty solidly. And with the right people in attendance, he was given a scholarship to Providence College. He played the 1934 season at Providence as the varsity offensive center. But at the end of his freshman year, he had to withdraw from college because we were in the midst of the Depression then. From 1935 to 44, Phil was with the Thompsonville Grays. During 1935 to 42, he was captain, offensive center, and defensive tackle. One of Phil's most memorable games was against the Franco-American team from Three Rivers, Massachusetts, which featured 3 players from Holy Cross College. 11 players played the whole game on offense and defense. Phil was one of them, blocked a kick for a safety, and the only score in the game, so it was a 2-0 victory for Thompsonville. Phil coached the Grays during the 1942, 43, and 44 seasons, and in addition to football, he also played baseball at Suffield Academy, second baseman, and he was the team captain in that sport in 1934. What a tremendous athletic career. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our next inductee into the Enfield Sports Hall of Fame, Phil Blaney.
I'd like to thank the committee for allowing me the privilege of being associated with this great bunch of people. The 4 of the deceased, I knew them all well, and they were wonderful guys. And Iggy Miller and I played together in 1933 and 34. That makes us a couple of old birds. And it's an honor to be with these other young fellas and women that are inductees. And I want to thank the committee again, and they made an 80-year-old guy feel pretty damn good.
Next, we have Kathleen Cookie Bromage, a 1961 grad at Suffield High School who attended Southern Connecticut State College, played field hockey and basketball during that time. Also, student taught at Enfield High School. She's been a teacher in Enfield, as a matter of fact, since 1965. In 1967, she started the field hockey program at Enfield High School at the request of the athletic director, Carl Angelica. There's that thread again that we talked about. Over the years, she's coached 2 high school All-Americans, several All-State players, numerous All-League players, and you can rest assured they would not have achieved those goals if it were not for the help that Cookie had given them in the kind of leadership she gave as a coach. She has had teams that were state final runners-up, league champions, state champions, and field hockey wasn't all of it either. She coached basketball at Enfield High School, girls varsity and junior varsity teams. She also was Enfield High School varsity and junior varsity cheerleader coach. Cookie was recognized as the Connecticut Division M Field Hockey Coach of the Year in 1983, 86, and 92. In 1992, she was named to coach the Senior All-Star team. In 1995, Cookie was named Connecticut High School Coaches Association Field Hockey Coach of the Year, and in 1995 received the Connecticut Sports Writers Alliance High School Female Coach of the Year award. Cookie and her husband Bob have no children of their own, unless you count every youth that they've ever come in contact with in terrific careers, those they've coached and taught and helped, and they've been good neighbors to everyone here in Enfield. Please welcome our newest inductee, Kathleen Cookie Bromage.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. It's an honor to share this evening with the other inductees, our families, our players and their families, and our friends. I would also like to congratulate the other inductees in this first class of the Enfield Hall of Fame. In many ways, our paths have crossed, and our lives have become more enriched through athletics and sports in the town of Enfield. As an undergraduate at Southern, I had the opportunity to student teach at Enfield High School. From that moment, I knew that was where I wanted to teach. Little did I realize at that time that my first teaching position would influence the rest of my life. The benefits I have gained from this position have been plentiful, rewarding, and full of joy. Mr. Angelica gave me the opportunity to coach and teach at Enfield. Beyond helping me establish a professional career, he also introduced me to my husband, Bob. Mr. Angelica was a forerunner in women's sports in the town of Enfield. He provided programs long before other towns in the area had sports opportunities for girls. I would like to thank our administrators and my fellow teachers over the years that have been extremely supportive and have shown continued confidence in our programs. And I'm also thankful for the assistant coaches who have helped me over the years. They have always been loyal and have always done whatever I've asked. Since learning of this special honor, I've had time to think about my career and the many blessings I've received from the players I've worked with. I have had the opportunity to work with some extremely talented athletes, as well as some lesser skilled athletes who have far exceeded their expectations. I'm thankful to have the opportunity to work with each one of these kids. They've always given their best effort, and they've always done it for me. Winning state championships we'll cherish forever, but I'll remember every season and all of the faces of the kids I've had on my field hockey teams and my basketball teams. Our relationship doesn't end after 4 years of high school. We've shared the joy of seeing girls go on and shine at the next level, become successful women in the business world, attend their weddings, and see them raise families. And even now, I have the opportunity to coach their daughters. We've also shared in the sadness of losing loved ones. It's also very heartwarming that I've always received the support from my players' parents. They still attend games long after their daughters have graduated. I'd also at this time like to thank my family for sharing in this evening. Our family is extremely close, and we've always pulled for one another. They've been involved in every one of the seasons I've ever coached, and I think they know most of my girls because I talk about them all the time. My family has a special closeness for Enfield, as some of them graduated from Enfield High School years ago. In fact, I think my dad was a pretty good athlete in Enfield in his day. The security, support, and love that my family has given to me has served me as a guide in my relationship with my players. I'd also like to thank my husband, Bob, for his continued support. He's taught me to tend to details, to make sure each practice was well planned, organized, and meaningful. After each practice, he'd always ask me if I ran the girls hard that day. And it certainly helps that he and I teach together in the same school because my kids respect and love him dearly. In conclusion, I'd like to thank my players and their parents, my friends, and my family for sharing this special moment. And I sincerely thank the committee for the Hall of Fame for your confidence in me. And I'll continually try to do my best. Thank you.
Congratulations, Cookie. Craig Janney is next. He began his formal ice hockey career in the Enfield Youth Hockey League, 1972 through 81. His teams were state champs in 77, 78, and 79. That 79 team was also the New England champ and achieved a fourth-place finish in the national tournament. At Enfield High School, his teams were Connecticut Division II state champions in 82, Connecticut Division I state champions in 1983. He was named All-State in 1982, 83, 84, Most Valuable Player in the Connecticut State Tournament in 82 and 83. During the 1984-85 season, Craig attended Deerfield Academy, where he was named as a prep school All-New England player, played for the U.S. Junior National Team 1985, 87, and the U.S. national team, 1987 and 94. From 1985 to 87, Craig attended Boston College, where his team was Hockey East champs in 1987. He was named All-America in 1987, and the best player in the U.S. wins the Hobey Baker Award. He was a finalist for that award that year. He was also named to the Hockey East All-Decade team, which doesn't mean it took him 10 years to get through BC, by the way. I want to straighten that out. During 1987 and 88, Craig was a member of the U.S. Olympic hockey team with some fellow named Brian something or other, a defenseman, also from Connecticut. The name slips my mind. From 1985 to 87, Craig attended Boston College, and we mentioned that earlier. I lost my place. Forgive me. See, those ad-libs kind of throw me off a little bit. If I'd stick to the script, I'd be okay. In 1988, he was a first-round draft choice, 13th overall pick of the Boston Bruins. Gee, my favorite team. He's been in the NHL since then with the Bruins, where the team reached the Stanley Cup Finals in 88 and 90, the St. Louis Blues with good old Mike Keenan, San Jose Sharks, and the Winnipeg Jets, who are now going to be the Phoenix Coyotes, in case you're keeping score of where the franchises are this coming season. The Whalers will be in Hartford, by the way, if you were wondering. In addition to hockey, Craig was an excellent athlete in baseball. He played for the Hazardville Enfield Little League, 1976 through 82. He was an all-star in 1979, 80, 81, and 82. His 81 and 82 teams were Connecticut State champs. In 1983 and 84, he played varsity baseball at Enfield High School at shortstop. In 1983, for the Enfield American Legion baseball team. In 1978, played Enfield youth soccer. In 1980 and 81 for John F. Kennedy Junior High School. He continued with soccer at Enfield High during 82 and 83 and at Deerfield Academy in 84, where he was named a prep school All-New England. Craig also played basketball at John F. Kennedy Junior High School. Pretty well-rounded athlete, but here's someone who's known around the entire country and certainly around the rest of the world as well, wherever good hockey is appreciated, and he certainly is a worthy recipient of this honor tonight. It's a pleasure to welcome the latest member of our Enfield Sports Hall of Fame, Craig Janney. I keep forgetting, sorry.
Well, I'd like to, first of all, thank the committee, two of my good friends over here, and congratulate all the other inductees. It's a really humbling night to be brought into the Hall of Fame in the first class with these special people from our town and who have touched so many kids in our town. I'm just a player still, so fortunately, I think the one thing that I've learned through all the coaches I've had over the years in youth hockey and people like the Brummages who I've had a lot to do with through high school is the most important thing I've carried through professional hockey. There's a lot of cynicism, as Arnold mentioned, with professional sports these days. It's a very corporate environment. But I'll tell you, the one thing I've very much learned through my years in Enfield and the main thing I've taken with me even in the professional ranks, the most important thing about athletics, learning to win and lose, but mostly it's the friends you make and the friends you keep and the friends you keep in touch with. The kids I grew up playing hockey and baseball with are still my friends today, and I'm very proud of that. And I'm proud of the friends I've continued to make through my travels with hockey. I've played on a few teams, as you know, but I look at every experience getting traded as just making 20 new friends. And that's the most important thing I've gathered from athletics. Other than that, I'd love to thank the coaches I've had through Enfield who've really shaped my life and my career. And most importantly, I'd like to thank my family, my brother, my sister, my little niece over there who really support me, and especially my parents who, I don't know if anyone knows about youth hockey. You have to get up so early in the morning. Your parents drag you all over the state, all over New England. And, if it wasn't for their support, I wouldn't be up here today. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg. Some of you may have seen an article that appeared recently, and somebody sent me a copy of it through email about salaries. Now, salaries have gotten a little bit out of hand, as some of you may have realized, you know. And Michael Jordan, now, he has one of the smaller salary packages for next year, believe it or not. And yet, this information came through, and I'd like to recite it just to kind of put it in perspective for you. Michael is going to make over $300,000 a game next season. Assuming he averages 30 minutes a game, that's $10,000 a minute. Assuming $40 million in endorsements next year, which may be on the conservative side, whether he works or not, each day he will earn $178,000. Assuming he sleeps 7 hours a night, while he sleeps, he's making $52,000. If he goes to see Independence Day, it'll cost him $7, but he'll make $18,500 while he's there. If he decides to boil a 5-minute egg, he'll make $600 while he's doing it. Let's see, they've hiked the minimum wage, but he still exceeds it by $7,415 an hour. While he watches Seinfeld, he'll make $3,700. If he wanted to save up for a new $90,000 car, it would take 12 hours. If someone were to hand him his salary and endorsement money, they would do it at the rate of $2 every second, 24 hours a day. If he goes to play a good round of golf, and Michael Jordan does a lot of that, it'll cost him maybe a couple $100 at a classy club, but he'll be reimbursed while he's playing for about $33,000. Assuming he puts the federal maximum of 15% of his income into his IRA tax-deferred account, and there is a cap on that, as you know, he will hit the federal cap of $9,500 for such accounts on January 1st, 1997 at 8:30 a.m. If you were given a tenth of a penny for every dollar Michael Jordan makes, you would be making $65,000 a year. While he watches the 100-meter dash in the Olympics, if they show that, because it depends on the gymnastics situation, while they're doing that, he'll make $20. He'll make about $15,600 while the Boston Marathon is run. When you and I go out and spend $100 for a meal in a very trendy restaurant, he'll pull in about $5,600. Now, if you really want to be floored, next year, Michael Jordan is going to make twice as much as all of our past presidents and all of their terms combined. And if you want to be cheered up after that, because none of us can be Michael Jordan, let's face it. There's only one Michael Jordan. But he'll have to continue this income for 270 more years in order to reach a net worth equivalent to Bill Gates. The moral of the story is going to computers, not basketball. Our next inductee is Angie Lamagna, who started his sports career in the Spring Street ball lot. From there, it was on to A.D. Higgins Grammar School, where he was an amateur boxer, a star basketball player, a dash man on the track team, baseball player. In the 30s, Angelo was the trainer for the old Thompsonville Grays football team. He became, they had a lot of poor equipment at that time, they tell me, so he did a lot of taping of ankles, wrists, and other body parts, which are frequently referred to by Dr. Dean Adele on WTIC. In the late 1930s and early 40s, Angelo was a featherweight boxer known as Kid Lamagna. Returning from military duty in World War II, he took his job as director of the town of Enfield Parks and Recreation. During his 40 years, Angelo was responsible for the various fields and gymnasiums used for baseball, football, soccer, basketball, outdoor hockey, etc. He originated activities such as crafts, games, field trips, and so on. His pride and joy was the Youth Center boxing tournament held each spring in March. The tournament consisted of 20 bouts between two teams, the Trojans and the Spartans. He was a fan of Greek literature, I guess, of youngsters aged 7 to 18, and weights ranging from 190 pounds down to 39 pounds. These fights were sometimes refereed by Willie Pep. Quite often the timekeeper was Harold Patty Green, the originator of the Enfield Parks and Playgrounds and a longtime commissioner. Angelo coached the St. Joseph Parochial School basketball team for 33 years, loved to referee boxing events at Summers Prison. He was a member of the VFW Fife and Drum Corps. Everyone's favorite story about Angelo, they tell me, was the winter he was plowing snow off freshwater ponds so the kids could ice skate. Of course, the vehicle broke through and sank with Angelo aboard. So it took tremendous strength, or he would not have even survived that. We can laugh about it now, thank goodness. In the 1964-65 Britannia publication, Angelo was named one of the leading men in the U.S. In 1979, he was awarded the Connecticut Boxing Guild Sportsmanship Award. The Enfield Town Council also honored Angelo for his volunteer work in 1985, and he was presented a certificate signed by Governor William O'Neill. On June 4th, 1989, the Neighborhood Center was renamed the Angelo Lamagna Activity Center. A very worthy inductee, and accepting for Angie Lamagna will be his wife, Marion.
I'm very proud to accept this honor for Ange. We have to keep the sports alive, keep the kids out of trouble. And I know he'd say that. Keep the kids into sports. The only trouble they're going to have is with their coaches. I want to thank the committee for inducting Ange. And my family thanks you, and I thank you.
Ignatius Morawski is next, Iggy Miller. He played under the name of Miller because it was easier for others to say and remember. He started his semi-professional career in 1938 in the Tri-County League in Massachusetts as a shortstop. In 1940, he played for Royal Typewriter in the Greater Hartford Semi-Pro League, also as a shortstop. In 1941, he turned to pitching with the Royal Typewriter team. He had an 8-5 record, made the All-Star team in the Dusty Loop. From 1942 to 47, Iggy pitched for the Savitt Gems in the Greater Hartford Semi-Pro League, 16-12 record. Also for the Pratt & Whitney baseball team in East Hartford Twilight League. Two of his most memorable games were in 1944 when he pitched a victory over the professional Eastern League champion Hartford Chiefs, and in 1945 when he pitched in an exhibition game against Babe Ruth. In 1946, Iggy pitched in the Manchester Twilight League, compiling 10 wins, 3 losses, and 3 of the wins were shutouts. And at the same time, he had a .353 batting average. No DHs back then. The team was league champion. Iggy was named to the All-Star team. In 1952, he pitched for the Pratt & Whitney Aircraft, showing 5 wins, no losses, and they were the Hartford Twilight League champions and the Connecticut Industrial League champions. In 1953, with Pratt & Whitney Aircraft, he won 4, lost none. They were again the Hartford Twilight League champs and Connecticut Semi-Pro champs. In 12 years with the Pratt & Whitney team in the Hartford Twilight League, Iggy's record was 40-plus wins against 6 losses. Iggy was inducted into the Greater Hartford Twilight Baseball League, the Hall of Fame, in 1990. He also played with some other immortals, with and against Lou Gehrig and Jim Thorpe and Satchel Paige. Satchel Paige had some of those wonderful sayings. And I find with each year of added age that I am now achieving in my senior citizen status, I like Satchel Paige's, one of his remarks, the best of all. He said, age is how old you are if you don't know when you were born. I just turned 27, by the way. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ignatius Morawski, Iggy Miller.
I was told to make my speech brief, so I'm going to make it brief. I want to thank my family who are attending tonight, and I want to thank all you nice people for participating in this gala event. And I think these fellows did a great, marvelous job. And I also want to thank the committee for selecting me to the Enfield Athletic Hall of Fame. I thank you. I'm honored.
Next up, another of those legendary names that I was very familiar with even before I moved to the state of Connecticut. That's Milt Pepple. He moved to Thompsonville, Connecticut from Springfield when he was 7 years old. During 1933, 34, 35, a running back on offense, linebacker on defense at Enfield High School. For the 35 through 37 academic and sports years, he transferred to Cathedral High School in Springfield, coached by Billy Wise there as a right halfback, punter, passer, linebacker, named All-City, and as a right-wing running back and linebacker, he was again named an All-City selection and an All-Western Massachusetts selection. I think most of you know that Milt attended Notre Dame University in South Bend, where he played football for Coach Elmer Layden. His 1938 team had an 8-1 one-loss record. His 39 team 7-2, and his 1940 team was also 7-2. In 1942, Milt was team captain, All-American, played in the college All-Star game against the NFL champion Chicago Bears before 100,000 people at Soldier Field in Chicago. They lost, as they usually did to the pro team, 37-13. In 1941, Milt played with the National Football League for the Detroit Lions. He was a teammate of Byron Whizzer White, who has gone on to the Supreme Court, of course. An accumulation of injuries forced his retirement from playing after the 41 season. He was named head coach of football and basketball at Cathedral High School in Indianapolis, then football coach at Wilbraham Academy, assistant football coach at Dartmouth College, then to various football coaching positions at Brown, Holy Cross, University of Massachusetts. He was head football coach at AIC, and his 1975 team compiled a record of 8-1. Milt was named UPI and New England Football Writers Association New England Coach of the Year. He also played basketball for Enfield High School and Cathedral High. He was a guard, developed a reputation as an excellent defender and a strong rebounder. I could go on and on about him, but let me just recite some of the awards that Milt Pepple has been able to gather over the years. Honors Court member of the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame, past president, New England College Athletic Conference, Naismith Memorial Selection TV Tip-Off Classic Committee, past member of several NCAA committees and councils, Man of the Year Award, Notre Dame University and the Gridiron Club of Greater Boston, Cathedral High School, Springfield, Massachusetts Hall of Fame inductee, athletic director of AIC in Springfield, Henry A. Batova Memorial Award of 1972, the highest honor bestowed by the Western Massachusetts chapter of the New England Foundation and Hall of Fame, and the NCAA Division II Council, Basketball Selection Committee, Steering Committee, Selection Committee, just about every committee that one could possibly name. What a marvelous career he enjoyed. He is a most worthy recipient of the honor that you pay him tonight, and it will be accepted in behalf of Milt Pepple by his son, John.
Geez, I know that my dad would really would have liked to have been here tonight to meet quite a few of the old-timers that he perhaps grew up with. He didn't talk a lot about his early years in Enfield, Thompsonville at that time. I feel part of my life is missing a little bit, not hearing about his earlier years. So it'd be interesting to talk to some of you people. But as you heard, he did have a lot of awards and a lot of committees and involvement in athletics. And I think that athletics gave him the opportunity to express himself and to meet people, to develop his character, and, of course, to get an education at Notre Dame. And I think those are some of the things that he was most happy about. He stayed in contact with many of his friends throughout his career, and it enabled him to stay in touch with sports and with people and the world of sports that he really enjoyed. I'd like to thank both Bill and the rest of the members of the committee for all the work they did. And I know my dad would have really enjoyed being here himself. Thank you very much.
Next is Anthony Tony P. Romano. Started his sports career in the late 40s, Thompsonville Boys Club. And he was named an unofficial honorary member of the All-Western Massachusetts team by Springfield sports writers in 1957. You know, that's the only time a Connecticut player was named All-Western Massachusetts. That goes to tell you something about how good an athlete Tony Romano was. He attended AIC. He was a leading scorer and rebounder on the freshman team in 1958 and was the second leading scorer, leading rebounder in 1959. In 1960, he went to school part-time, worked full-time, and still played for the Windsor Locks Merchants in the 12-team Farmington Valley Semi-Pro League. They were league champions, and Tony was the league most valuable player. He played at Eastern Connecticut State University, which at the time I believe was Willimantic State College, where his 61-62 team had an 18-7 record, the most wins by any Connecticut college that year. Tony had a school record 589 points, 24.5 per game, which made him the leading collegiate scorer in the state of Connecticut. Tony had 34 points and a school record 36 rebounds in the first round of the New England State College Athletic Conference tournament in a win over Salem State. He was the 20th leading scorer in the nation for the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. Averaged 23 rebounds per game, making him the NAIA National Rebounding Champ. 62-63, he was an AP Little All-American, the only player ever named All-America from ESCU, and Associated Press All-New England. He played semi-pro for the Thompsonville Grays in the New England Basketball League. He was in the Massachusetts Summer League, Enfield Parks and Rec Winter League, the Enfield Over 30 Church League. He was boys varsity basketball coach at Granby High School. Tony was also coach umpire from 1979 on for the Enfield Little League, Enfield Petticoat Softball League, coach and referee for the Enfield Parents Sports Association in basketball, and commissioner for 10 years of the Enfield Slow Pitch Softball League. I talked earlier about the athletes, particularly at a very important time in the development of sports communities such as yours in Enfield. The development was so important because these were people who had an ability and turned that ability around and gave it back to the kids who followed them. And for that reason alone, he's more than a worthy recipient of your honor and your a round of applause tonight. Please welcome Anthony Romano.
Don't get scared. I sometimes draw blanks. First two things I like to do is basically what everybody else has done. My appreciation to the Hall of Fame committee. I'm certainly aware of all the effort and time that they certainly had to put in to pull this event off. And I want to extend my congratulations to all the other inductees. It certainly is a great honor becoming a member of this charter organization. I'm probably as native as you can get. I was born in Enfield, raised here, went to school here, and still here, and glad to be here. I think I look upon the town as providing an atmosphere that you don't find in every community. And that atmosphere, I think, allowed me and allows a lot of other people to meet their goals and needs. It certainly helped me, and I like to thank the people of Enfield for creating that atmosphere. To my friends, co-workers, teammates, I'd like to say thank you very much for caring. I think caring is something that we see happening all over Enfield. I'd like to give special thanks to my family, the support of my brother Fred, his family. I would like to mention something that I mentioned at an induction when I was inducted into the Hall of Fame at college. Last thing I did was I just ran through quickly my all-star team. And I'd like to do that very quickly for you if I could. I picked the people that I thought were that close to me and really helped me in the successes that I've had. And when I put my all-star team together, I picked my two guards. And at the guard positions, I put my mom and my late dad. My dad passed away within the past year. And as guards on my team, they worked very hard to ensure the happiness and success of all of us. Like good guards, they handled all types of pressure, had to take care of that pressure, and they certainly assisted us as good guards would in every way possible. My all-star forwards, my two children, my daughter Amy, my son Anthony, I feel they possess qualities that you would love to find in any front line. They're smooth as silk. They're team players. They always desire to succeed, and they're always there ready to rebound and score. My center, and before I mention my center, I've had to put two people on my bench. Since the last time I said this at the last induction, my son married, so now I have a daughter-in-law on my bench. Getting close to getting into the game. And my little grandson. We have an interesting situation. I'm Anthony, Tony. My son's Junior, and we have Tony the third. And if that wasn't hard enough to get used to, I have a daughter, Amy. My son marries a girl named Amy. So we have a couple of Amy Romanos. Getting to my all-star center, my wife, Judy. Graceful, talented, ability to do it all. Doesn't accept losing, She's a true champion. And to those people, I want to say thank you. People of Enfield, thank you. Committee, thank you. I'll cherish this forever.
Oh, we're two-thirds of the way through. So let me just digress for a moment, if I may. One of the pleasures of my job is that I do get the opportunity to deal with some people in athletics who really are terrific people. Craig Janney, I think, is a terrific example. I mentioned Gordie Howe's name before, and just they're wonderful people. They're really terrific to work with, and some of them turn out to be the most amusing people you could ever encounter. I remember I was with LaSalle coach Speedy Morris once when he told a story about one morning when he was shaving to get ready to go to school and at LaSalle, and he had lathered his face all up, and he was using a razor, and he was shaving. He heard the phone ring, and he heard his wife say, "Coach, it's Sports Illustrated calling." Whoa. And he started to bleed all over the lather on his face. He grabbed a towel to try to stanch that. And he was running blindly for the stairs because he didn't want them to hang up, for God's sake. He tripped on the stairs, hurt one ankle, the other knee, stumbled, bumbled, and fumbled his way down to the telephone, picked it up and said, "Hello?" And the voice said, "Is this Mr. Morris?" And he said, "Yes, it is." She said, "This is Janet from Sports Illustrated. Did you know that for just $1.75 an issue, a wonderful basketball coach by the name of Frank Layden, who once said, 'I'm from Brooklyn. I was 18 before I found out that cops are paid by the city, too.'" But on the flip side of that, and this is not an area where you condemn the athletes, but you condemn the fans, Frank Layden quit coaching in the National Basketball Association. And in a rare, serious moment, someone asked him, "Why did you quit?" He said, I was sick and tired of fans spitting on me." We're wonderful. There's Jerry Coleman, the ex-New York Yankee infielder, who has been a long-time broadcaster now, and most of the time with the San Diego Padres. And it was back years ago when Dave Winfield, well, in the first place, this guy has all kinds of little accidents on the air. For example, Jerry Coleman once said, "And the batter rounds first, and he's digging for second base, and he slides into second standing up." But Dave Winfield was a rookie center fielder with the San Diego Padres. And at one point, Coleman described a play by saying, "There's a long drive. It's off the wall, and Dave Winfield is over, and he banged his head on the wall. And now it's rolling back toward the infield." Another fellow who was a guest on my show, you may not recognize the name, but Ken Levine was a writer for Cheers for a long time. Another of my frequent guests, by the way, is a guy named Kurt Smith, who was a speechwriter for George Bush. You see, other people do things straight, but they also like to be sportscasters in their free time, as I do. Ken Levine was a writer for Cheers, enormously successful, but he always loved baseball. He decided he wanted to become a baseball announcer, and he paid his dues. He went through the minor leagues, he learned the craft, he finally got a job doing Baltimore Orioles games. And Ken Levine decided the one way that you really make a success of yourself as a baseball announcer is to have a distinctive home run call. Mel Allen started this with Going, Going, Gone, and you've heard all the variations since then. Well, Ken Levine came up with a brand new one. His was, "Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has left the ballpark." And he used that. It got a lot of ink, a lot of notoriety as a result of it. But then he found he had to stop using it because in one game he described a particularly well-hit ball by saying, "There's a long drive to deep left field, and ladies and gentlemen, Elvis is off the top of the wall." But Craig Janney knows Micah Ruzioni. I shared a speaker's platform with him not long after that Miracle on Ice, 1980, Lake Placid, the Olympic Games, and so on. And one of the remarks that he made when he addressed the crowd that night at a Jimmy Fund function was that one of the privileges of being the captain of a championship hockey team like that one gave him the opportunity to be invited to various golf tournaments and other things where he met a lot of stars. And one of the things he was invited to was the Dinah Shore Golf Classic, which was played at that time. And he said when he got there, now remember this is 1981 or 82, and if you remember Jan Stevenson particularly at that time, I mean this was like Sharon Stone, I mean just absolutely gorgeous. So anyway, come to find out, Eruzione gets there and finds out that he is the sports celebrity and she is the golf pro in this particular group of 5. Well, that was kind of exciting for Mike. And he walked over and someone introduced him to Jan Stevenson. And his eyes were flipping around in his head as he walked away, walked over to his caddy who was talking with Jan Stevenson's caddy, and I'll phrase this a little differently than he did, but he said words to the effect that, I can't believe that I'm going to be following that gorgeous figure around for an entire round of golf. And Stevenson's caddy said, gee, what about me? I'm married to her. I have particular reason for wanting to present this next award now because it's about time somebody from the media is getting it. And God bless you, Tony, for remembering the bench, because if it weren't for the bench, I never would have had any role in athletics myself. Leah Secondo, only member of the media to be inducted in this first class. And she's been opening doors for women in sports her entire career, according to an article that I read a couple of days ago from the JI. Secondo was a superb athlete at Fermi High in field hockey, basketball, softball. For 10 years after graduation, she became one of the first women to play ice hockey for the Enfield Hockey Association. She's coached and refereed and served as both a print and broadcast journalist. A career highlight was her work last winter as color analyst on Connecticut Public Television for 21 UConn women's basketball broadcasts. You've seen her on Channel 40 in Springfield, on Channel 8 in New Haven. She was the first female sportscaster in the state of Connecticut. She's been on Channel 61, Channel 30, Channel 6 in Providence, Sports Channel America. She was, well, I'll come back to that when I was going to mention something about her association with WTIC. She was a basketball analyst, color commentator for Central Connecticut State University women's basketball games. She's been on NESN, the New England Sports Network, the University of Hartford women's basketball broadcasts on their campus station, and color commentator for Sports Channel Florida. She also worked with us, as I started to mention before, on WTIC. The season before last, we had the opportunity, with all the success that the women's team at UConn was beginning to engender, we were asked by UConn if we could investigate starting the UConn basketball network extending to women. So the broadcaster, Joe D'Ambrosio, and I sat down to talk about it. We checked out the schedules. We had to work around conflicts with the Whalers and with the men's basketball team, so it wasn't easy. But we came up with a limited schedule of games. Without question, the voice of the Huskies, Joe D., should do them. The only other question was who's going to do analysis with him. And it was magical because without communicating, we both knew that Leah was going to be the choice. And she did a marvelous job, as we knew she would. And the only reason that she didn't come back was because we knew that she had a better opportunity to do more games by going to CPTV and doing the games there, where she's done extraordinarily well, as she has with everything in her career. There are some other things she's done. She's played softball. She was the first woman to umpire a men's slow-pitch softball game in Enfield. Assistant coach for the Fermi High School softball team, assistant softball coach at the University of New Haven, basketball at Fermi High. She refereed as a Connecticut high school basketball official, and in 1989 she was recognized as distinguished alumni from Enrico Fermi High School. I'm very happy that she is my friend because we in the media admire those who do a very good job at what they do, and she is one of the best. Leah Secondo.
it's all about opportunity. And without the success of teams like the UConn women's basketball, many of my opportunities in sports broadcasting would have never have happened. So we also have to thank the UConn women's basketball team, too. About 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to do a story for Channel 8 on the Manchester Sports Hall of Fame. And at that time, as I was putting the segment together, I'm thinking to myself, boy, with all the athletes who have come and gone in Enfield, people like Ange and Cookie, and all I've heard about Carl Angelica, and every time Carl Angelica's name was mentioned, it was like lightning was striking in Enfield, because I know from stories that my mom and dad had told me what a great influence he had on the sports in Enfield. I thought to myself, perfect, incredible. This is something that Enfield really needs to do and to look into, and it's really fantastic that the committee has come together and made this a reality. Not once during that time did I ever think that I would be included in with the inaugural class tonight, and I am deeply, deeply touched to be a part of it. While my name may be listed on this plaque, it's not me, it's we for the induction. My family, who has certainly been a backbone for me. Excuse me. And provided great support. And one person on my family who couldn't be here tonight, my 91-year-old grandmother, who still to this day can't understand why you want to be a broadcaster. I don't understand this is a job. She still insists that I should go into bookkeeping, but she's with me right here tonight. My friends, many of them, my teammates, both on the field, in officiating, and in the broadcast industry, who I've come across, people like Sandy Sukowski, who's behind that camera tonight, who's working with Continental Cable, who gave me my first shot in the field. Bo Kalinsky, who's sitting alongside of me here tonight from the Hartford Courant. And Arnold Dean, who gave me a shot, all about opportunity. And of course, the many coaches that I've been fortunate to play for along the way and play against, like Cookie Brummage. Great influence on my life, Cookie. And I truly appreciate it. I will definitely cherish this forever. Thank you very much.
And she looks good, too, as you've noticed. You know, I get the same thing all the time. Why do you want to be in broadcasting? Why don't you find some other line of work? Unfortunately, it's my boss who's saying it. I believe the Red Sox game, I think they're trailing 7-1 and have committed 4 errors. Now, I have nothing to base that on. I'm just assuming that that's about where they would be at this point in the evening. Bill Spanswick began his baseball career in Thompsonville Little League in 1949. 15 years later, he was a left-handed pitcher for the Boston Red Sox. He had a 2-3 record in 1964. It was his only year in the bigs. Played under Johnny Pesky, one of the great gentlemen in the game of baseball, and he still is today. They finished 25 and a half games behind the, of course, pennant-winning Yankees that year. Spanswick had developed his abilities in Enfield, often at the youth center. He said Angelo Lamagna was a tough disciplinarian. He made you a better athlete by treating you older than you were. Isn't that great? Thus began an odyssey through the minors once he got to pro baseball. It took Spanswick as far west as Honolulu, as far north as Toronto. His 1959 season with the Raleigh Capitals, a Double-A team, led to a league championship. He went 16-4, an earned run average of 2.49. 2-0 in the playoffs. He was an all-star, and his teammates included people like Carl Yastrzemski, Russ Nixon, and Dick the Monster Raditz. Spanswick's 1964 rookie baseball card pictured him with another Boston immortal, Tony Canigliaro. After retiring in 1967, and that's the year, that, of course, that the Red Sox pulled off their miracle victory, Spanswick coached Little League, College, and American Legion in Enfield and Springfield, and he also played and coached softball, again, giving back to the people who had given to him. It is with great pleasure that we welcome a true big leaguer, Bill Spanswick.
Thank you, Arnold. I also would like to, first of all, thank the committee for the induction tonight. I'm deeply honored by it. I also learned a lot today by listening to the exploits of the other inductees. I knew they were great friends, great athletes, but there were things that each one of them has done that I was unaware of. Makes me more proud that I'm among them. And Leah, I'm a little bit like you. I get a little bit emotional, and when you get recognized like this, there certainly are people that you would like to thank, and I would like to please thank my mom and dad. Would you get up, please? Along with my parents, my grandfather, Charlie Lockwood, the chief of police in Enfield, I think I have one up on you, Tony. I'm also a local boy and a native, but I'm a year older, so I've got you by one. But when my dad was working, Gramp used to take me to the Little League games, and it meant an awful lot to me. I just wanted to mention him. Also, I think the other two people that come to mind, being a youngster in Thompsonville, as it was then, not Enfield, you have to mention Angelo Lamagna in the youth center. I probably was at the youth center 4 nights a week, 6 o'clock, waiting for the door to open, like Tony and many of us. And Angelo just meant so much to all of us. And then as we got a little bit older, of course, Coach Angelica. He just coached everything. Whatever you played, Carlo was your coach, so he had to mean most to all of us in those years. I appreciate him very much. Now, playing sports, I think what they did for me mostly was to create memories. And I have a lot of good memories. I played the professional sports for 10 years along with being a younger athlete in town. And some of the memories that ring a bell with me, I'm just going to mention a few. But I was in the bullpen when Roger Maris hit his 61st home run. That was a big one. I was in the clubhouse talking to Yaz the last game he played with his dad, and playing against and pitching against Mickey Mantle and Mays and Aaron, or not Aaron, but Ernie Banks, and playing against Brooks Robinson. And I also, like Iggy Murawski said, I know I'm not that old, but I started a game against Satchel Paige in the Pacific Coast League, but Satch was 61 that year. And I beat him. He pitched the first 5 innings, and we were ahead 3-1 after 5, and they took Satch out. He was 61 years old, played for Vancouver in the Pacific Coast League. And also, I missed Ted Williams by 1 year, but he was in spring training the first year I was down there. And I would fight people to be the guy that caught balls when he was hitting fly balls to the outfield. I just wanted to be the one that caught him up and flipped them to him so I could chat with him. And I spent many hours talking to Ted, and he was just a great person. That's certainly a highlight. Great memories. But the most enduring memories that I have I always revert back to being younger and being in Thompsonville and growing up on Cottage Green. It was just a great environment. My dad hitting ground balls out in the parking lot and the Bigelow parking lot to my brother and I, and my mother up in the window yelling for us to come in for supper. And night after night, banging balls off that rounded edge of the cornerstone down there at Bigelow. Forever it seemed like we banged balls off. And of course the sports, the youth center with Angelo. There's one thing, I played in the first year that the Enfield Little League or Thompsonville Little League was formed. It was a big year that year. We had the Rotary, Chamber of Commerce, Lions, and Kiwanis. That was Hazardville, everybody in town. That was the whole Little League, 4 teams. And I was too old the second year, but we're just getting things going, and look what it's come to today from 4 little teams. But I remembered one thing when I was coaching later on, and as a Little League player. I wanted to mention that. Some of us are still coaching Little League, and some have, or some will. But one thing to remember, when you're a coach, you can't possibly remember every kid that you've ever had on every team. But the kids remember you. So just make sure that they're making memories when they're playing for you and having fun. There's such a small percentage of them are ever going to go beyond high school or college. So you might be the coach that they remember and the fun that they remember. And so make sure their memories are fond memories. I also had great high school memories, and I'm looking at Tony. Tony and I were only a year apart in high school, and we played probably 3 years basketball. And I'm going to say we won a couple of them. I don't know, but good thing I was on those teams, some of them. But we played also. After that, I was fortunate enough to play with Tony when Coco Gaetani was the coach, and we played in some of the tournaments in Springfield and the Goodwill tournament in Hartford. They were just great years. I also played for Joe Lamont. I didn't want to go without mentioning Joe. I played 1 year of football, and I don't know why. Coach Angelica thought it would be nice for me to play 1 year of football to toughen me up for basketball rebounding. I would just work out with the team. I wouldn't have to play any games because I was 6'3", 155 pounds, full of dynamite. Unbelievable specimen for a football team. But I made it through. And Coach Lamanna was the coach that year. I graduated from high school, went right to Nova Scotia. Got paid $60 a week to pitch in a team for a team up there. I was supposed to be raking the field and doing some maintenance work because I had a scholarship at Holy Cross, so I still had to be an amateur, so they paid me for maintaining the field instead of pitching. Then on to Holy Cross, and I signed in 1958 and wound up playing 10 years, most of them in the minor leagues, but still great memories. They just keep coming back to Cottage Green, though. I can't think of a better place to grow up than Thompsonville, Connecticut was in those days. The people in the Bigelow would go to work, walk back up the hill. They all lived in the 4-family homes that were owned by Bigelow. And the horn would blow at 1 o'clock, back to work. It just seemed like something out of a movie. And I honestly can't remember ever wanting for anything when I was a kid growing up here. It's been a great experience. I love the town. I thank God for growing up in Enfield, Connecticut. Thank you.
Next we have Vito Tallarita. Vito came to Enfield in 1929 from Italy. He was 7 years old. He became recognized throughout the United States as a prominent boxing promoter, matchmaker, and manager. Boxed as a flyweight from 1937 to 42. Then from 42 to 46, served in the U.S. Navy. He was an amateur boxer there. He also boxed professionally under an assumed name at the time. His most memorable fights were when he twice fought against Willie Pep. Went the distance both times, but lost decisions. There was a lot of that going around with Willie Pep, of course. Starting in 1946, Vito became a boxing promoter and manager. He leased the old rundown VFW arena, renamed it the Thompsonville Arena, where he staged boxing cards every Friday night. He had people like Chico Vijar and Eddie Redtop Owens, whom he managed to number 3 light heavyweight ranking. He was matchmaker for Marlon Starling's first 20 fights. He was the matchmaker for 5 Sugar Ray Leonard New England fights. He was the matchmaker for Bob Foster, who was another prominent boxer. He was the promoter of numerous closed-circuit championship boxing matches in Springfield, including the Muhammad Ali-Joe Frazier fight and Ali versus George Foreman. In 1975, Vito was named the Connecticut Boxing Guild Man of the Year. Bob Steele tells a million stories about Vito Tallarita, for whom he had the utmost respect and admiration, and that does not come easily from Bob Steele, who, as you remember, is something of a boxer himself. He says, I had 22 fights, and I won all but 19 of them. In addition to boxing, Vito was also the promoter of numerous professional wrestling matches in Holyoke and Springfield in the 50s and 60s. He also was a tremendous help to Angelo Lamagna in coming up with programs for Enfield kids, again, giving it back. And when he died 12 years ago, Vito Tallarita, for someone as well known as he was not a wealthy man, but that's because over the years, he was a soft touch. Any boxer who was down on his luck, or anyone else who was down on his luck, knew all I have to do is go see Vito Tallarita and he'll help me out. And he did, and he would never, ever have taken any of those things back. Accepting for this worthy recipient his dad, here is Lou Tallarita.
Boy, following Spanswick's still a tough act. On behalf of my father and my family, I would like to thank the Hall of Fame Committee for bestowing this honor on my father. We all feel a sense of pride that his accomplishments are still being acknowledged. We feel this honor will ensure his memory to live on in the town of Enfield. Dad, I hope you have a ringside seat tonight right next to George Daly. We love you.
And now the final of our 12. Enfield native Russ Tyler was one of the town's premier athletes in the early 60s. He either played under or got to know virtually every one of the other Hall of Fame inductees throughout an outstanding career. And he again refers to Angelo Lamagna as his first basketball coach and Tony Romano as his second coach, Carl Angelica, baseball and basketball coach at Enfield High. And he was quoted by Phil Sweetland in the J.I. as saying, Enfield is a great sports town and a great town to grow up in, which has been echoed by Spanswick and so many of the others who've been up here tonight. He set Enfield High School basketball marks, which have since been broken, for most points in a season, most points in a career, most points per game over a season. An excellent student, Tyler moved on to the Ivy League, to Brown University in Providence. He was even a better player there. Matter of fact, I have a note from someone that says the best freelance shooter I ever coached. His senior year at Brown, he went 46 and 35 points in 2 games against arch rival URI. But he wasn't all that good. His lack of defense cost us one of those games. A truly great family man. He's been a real friend since he found out I could get him tickets. I'm sure all of you Enfield people have supported Russ throughout his career, especially in his law practice where he has milked many of you. Congratulations, Russ. I love your family. They are the best. This is from Senior Associate Athletic Director at Providence College, Jerry Alaimo. As if you couldn't guess. There are so many records that he set. For example, highest foul shooting percentage in a single season, 87%, which is approximately the same as Shaquille O'Neal has right now. give or take 50 or 60%. He has won so many awards. Here again, we could spend the rest of the evening talking about them. He was awarded the Key Society Award for Sportsmanship, Leadership, Outstanding Contribution to the Sport of Basketball, the J. Richmond Award for the student athlete who contributed most to the sport of basketball, the Leonard Fritz Finkler Award for senior student athlete who contributed the most to the growth of intercollegiate sports at Brown University, and it goes on and on. But he was also a Brown University Athletic Hall of Fame inductee and an East Hartford Explorer Hall of Fame inductee. That occurred in 1982. Our final honoree tonight, and another most worthy recipient, Russ Tyler.
Ladies and gentlemen, when I arrived here this evening, I was immediately put back into the year 1967 at Enfield High School. I was standing outside and I heard a voice, and it was the voice of Coach Bob Brummage. And what I heard was, "Russ Tyler." And I turned, and there he was. And he said, "Do you realize there's 320 people here this evening, and you didn't pass the ball to one of them?" So that set the tone for the evening. And Tony, you go ahead and worry. Well, the good news is that I'm the last inductee speaker. The bad news is Bill Chaves told me to string this out to 11 o'clock because he wants to have a lot of coverage with Continental Cable. Growing up in the 50s and 60s, first of all in the home that I grew up in, and secondly in the neighborhood called Thompsonville that I grew up in, and thirdly having had the good fortune to attend Enfield High School in the 60s, it was like growing up in a sports paradise. There was no shortage of heroes, and many of these heroes became my mentors, and all were my friends. Vito Tollerita lived 2 blocks to the south. Phil Blaney lived about 8 blocks to the north. Bill Spanswick, maybe 5 blocks or so away on Cottage Green. And when he talks about pitching for the Red Sox, I actually saw Bill Spanswick pitch against the Yankees. I saw him pitch against Mickey Mantle in either 63 or 64, whatever year it was, courtesy of the Park and Rec, courtesy of Tony Romano and Angelo Lamagna, who brought us to the game. And Angelo and Tony are both also special to me, as was Coach Angelica. As Arnold Dean just mentioned, Angelo was my first basketball coach, Tony was my second, and Coach Angelica was my third. When I got to Enfield High School, Cookie was there. And we know, of course, that back then there was no such thing as field hockey. So what Cookie did was she made herself the best cheerleader coach that you could imagine. And she also was the best matchmaker that you can imagine, and the perfect role model. Beyond that, she provided 3 state field hockey championship medals for my daughter Kate and 1 for my daughter Bridget. I don't have any. They won't share them with me, but... So that, for me, being recognized this evening with these individuals who were my mentors and my heroes and my friends is indeed very, very special. Thank you very much.
Well, you have met the entire inaugural class, and they certainly provide a solid foundation for what I think is going to be, well, it is right now with just these 12 names, but an outstanding feature of this town. But I think that it's going to do nothing but grow and get even better over the years. By the way, the Hall of Fame induction plaques are going to be on display at the Angelo Lamagna Activity Center in downtown Enfield following the ceremonies tonight. And now I'd like to reintroduce the co-chairman for this evening. Right after I say I want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of these ceremonies tonight, because by honoring these worthy recipients, you have indeed honored yourselves, and it's a pleasure for me to have been along for the ride on it. Now, the last Hall of Fame, thank you. The last Hall of Fame achievement that we're going to talk about tonight is for the two guys who, in 9 months, put together a program. Well, I've spoken at one or two of these in my, 37 years or so now, and I don't know of any that have been better organized than this one, and they've done you all proud. So let me reintroduce them now at this point, and please show your appreciation to Bill Chaves and Mike Cotnor. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all very much. Bill Spanswick spoke of remembering your coaches. I remember 1983 for American League Baseball, Bill was one of my coaches. The manager was Fran Slattery, who's a very active member on our committee. A few other people I'd like to thank are my family, my parents, Donald and Barbara, my brother Timothy, of course my wife Julie, who let me escape every evening just about. There's a lot of people in this community, as well as businesses, that have given a lot, unbeknownst to a lot of you, and I'd like to just recognize a few of those. First of all, the Enfield Police Benevolent Association with Al Harrison, who was able to give us a very generous donation to get us going. Stan Dynia, who put together a wonderful presentation that you'll see very shortly. McDonald's and Rosen Enterprises, which had a 2-week fundraiser for us just completed 2 days ago, and we'll be donating $2,100 to the Hall of Fame. George Daly, of course. These plaques would be empty without George. He wrote them all. He researched them all. He did it all. Enfield Pontiac Nissan Honda, Enfield Ford, Karen Jarmock, Kathy Talarita, Jen DeStoli, Michelle White, the Enfield Press, the Journal-Inquirer, the Hartford Current, of course Continental Cable, and all of you. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you coming out tonight, and we look forward to seeing you all next year. Thank you.
That was the first half. Now we're going to begin the second half. I have some thank yous as well. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the Harley Hotel. Also, along with the Harley, Mr. AV for allowing us to use this equipment, and Taylor Rental as well. But I think a big round of applause for Richard Osterman and his staff here at the Harley Hotel. And one more time for Arnold Dean. I think he did a great job tonight. To both the present and the past town council, thank you very much. And of course, the committee. Without the committee and people getting together every month, and then every 2 weeks, and then every week, nights like this will not occur. I'd certainly like to just try to go through the names and the committee members that are here present. If you could just stand, that would be great. We'll save the applause for the end, but if you could stand, that would be wonderful. Craig Winchester, Len Sparks, Mary Smith, Fran Slattery, Carl Newschafer, Sean McGuire, Sam McGill, Michael Ludwig, Ed Lapanese, Bob Lackenbach, Sal Fiore, George Daly, Bill Davis, Chris Kuchar, and both Mike and myself. Thank you very much. one more bit of business, too. As you can see all night with the lights here in Continental Cable, Continental will be airing this on August 17th and 18th. It's a Saturday night and Sunday night at 7 o'clock each night. I think they're going to have subsequent airings after that, but the first ones will be on the 17th and 18th. Now what we'd like to do is present you with our closing slideshow presentation. We're just going to need to set up just briefly. It's going to be about 2-3 minutes, and I know it's real difficult on these ends right here, so we'll do it in about 2-3-4 minutes. If we want to kind of slide down or even get a vantage point in the back of the room, that might be the best thing. The slideshow presentation is about 9 minutes long, so get yourself comfortable, and then when we're all set, we'll dim the lights and we'll go forward. Thank you again.